Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and we are joined once again by the one and only Dr. Ron Paul. First of all, thank you for joining us again, sir.
Good to be with you.
Excellent. Now, it appears as though we've been in a depression since 2008, papered over with debt. Countries like Australia and Britain are lowering interest rates. The Fed is looking at lowering interest rates. Do you think we will see negative interest rates, and what will that do to an already crippled global economy?
It's going to obviously make it worse, and the nominal negative interest rates is very important, and it'll be announced when that happens. But I think of it as already being there, because I think the price inflation is much higher than they say. So if you have a 2% interest rate and inflation's at 4%, you're negative because you're losing more than you're getting paid back. So in many ways, we're operating with zero or less than that. But psychologically, it'll have a much greater impact, and it won't make any sense. It'll be something new and strange. And what is there? $13.5 trillion worth of these bonds now that are paying negative interest rates. So I think it's a reflection of a monetary policy that was designed many years ago, and we had hints all along the way, and it really ushered in the age of rampant fiat inflation since 1971, since there's no backing. So I think we're nearing the climactic end of this, because how low can you go? There's eventually an end point, and I think we're approaching it.
Yeah, I recently spoke with Stephen Moore, who hilariously is considered a Fed critic because he wants them to lower interest rates. I guess that's what makes someone a Fed critic nowadays. And he was one of the lead contenders for the Fed. And he recently told me that we won't see negative interest rates, and lower interest rates mean that the dollar is stronger than ever. What do you think about academics like this, or people who at least claim to be academics, saying things like along the lines of the dollar is stronger than ever?
Well, I say compared to what? That's the whole thing, because the dollar is a mess. It's weak, and who's going to if you had real money and real bonds and real savings, and you wanted to prepare for your kids' education, so you buy a 10-year or 20-year bond or something and put it away and say, "Oh, I'm going to pay for my college kids." It's, that would take care of it. But at the same time, the price of the college education goes double, triple, and quadruple. Everybody knows that. So nobody buys these things as an investment. It's all done by governments and big corporations and pension funds and all. They have to just store their money someplace. So now there's so much around and nobody really wants it. They have to pay people to take it, and you lose money on it. But I just think the chaos is a reflection of a monetary system that's coming to an end. And because somebody might say, well, people still want dollars, they do, because we still have maintained a remnant of the of being a reserve currency. But if you look at those statistics, it's going down steadily. What percentage of the world's using the dollar, and there's a concerted effort now to undermine the dollar. So to say temporarily that, oh, well, they're still buying dollars and they want them and they'll do it. But if they look at the big pictures, they have to compare it to what? And if it's purchasing power, there's no salvation in putting your money into a bond. You have to pay to put the money into the bond, and the corporations are going to start to do this. It's a real mess.
Yeah, and meanwhile, we have people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and others saying that maybe we just need more government to fix this problem of banks and government. But I wanted to move on to banks, because many of the major banks appear to be insolvent according to their own cash to deposit ratios. They're holding next to no cash. How enormous will the next Lehman Brothers be, in your opinion?
Well, maybe it's already started. The German bank is not doing too well. But if you look at another segment, is there that's not solvent. If you would look at the number of people that, if they have a downturn, lose their job, how much savings do they have? How long can they be tied over? A week or two or a month or something like that? Most people are insolvent in a true sense of the word. So we are insolvent. We're literally at that point of bankruptcy, but we owe more than we have. So it is true. I think we had an insolvency, admission of a bankruptcy in 1971 because we had a guarantee that even though the Americans weren't allowed to enjoy it, but internationally, if you had $35, we'd give you an ounce of gold. And everybody knew it would end, and it did end. And yet they've adjusted that. But because of our military power, the amount of wealth that we have, and because they were dependent on us as a reserve currency, the dollar has continued. And like you say, some people point out it was still doing pretty good, compared to what else. I mean, we're not going to all of a sudden see the euro become the reserve currency of the world, but we might see where the plans are being made now is to develop an alternative currency, even with a basket of currencies or with gold or whatever. There's a lot of countries, not in the West, not in the United States, they're not buying gold, but they are in the Far East, and we have built up a lot of enemies, and everybody we have interfered with and put on sanctions. Now even the Europeans are not happy with us with the sanctions. So people are looking for alternatives, and that will be the big event, is when we essentially are no longer recognized as a reserve currency, because having the reserve currency mean you are the official counterfeiter for the world. And we trust you to keep up the value of the dollar. And they messed around with it, and they've been able to basically do that. But eventually people are going to say, you're just a counterfeiter, and we're sick and tired of paying for your deficit. So we export. We're a great exporter. Donald Trump doesn't know this, but we really export a lot of paper money. That's our export, and we get stuff for that. Well, they're going to get tired of doing that too, and that's when the financial crisis will be very evident for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, the dollar was technically a better thing to keep your wealth in than the stock market last year, but at what scale is that good? I mean, we are at really a breaking point in this system, and you mentioned a basket of currencies and the idea of, is there going to be an evolution or revolution of some kind following the next crisis? And I wanted to ask you, recently Trump, who has hilariously been called a Fed critic again, called the dollar the greatest while criticizing Bitcoin. I would love to hear your thoughts on that and this idea of competing currencies outside of just repeating the same mistakes we've made for over 1,000 years throughout history.
Yes, that was my whole point while I was in Congress, was to denationalize money, because governments have never been good at managing money. They notoriously always destroy the value of money. And 1971 wasn't the first time. We have been doing it systematically ever since we've had the Fed. We did it during the Civil War. Anytime you have a war, most countries always suspend the gold standard. So, but I want to have competition, and now today, if you want to take in silver dollars to pay your taxes, it'd be totally refused. Can you operate with silver dollars and call them dollars? No, you're not allowed to do that. No, I want to make sure that the market can devise an alternative currency, that it not be taxed or regulated. So that means that if you and I and others wanted to use silver dollars as the monetary unit, that we would be allowed, but we wouldn't have to pay a sales tax when we buy a silver dollar. You don't pay a tax on it when you exchange your currency for another one. And if you use your silver dollar, and instead of being $1 worth $1.50, you have to pay tax on the income, and that doesn't make it a currency. So you have to get rid of the sales taxes and the capital gains tax. And that's one place where our campaign for liberty has been working, is trying to change the laws at the state level, because the Constitution is so explicit. The states can only recognize silver and gold as legal tender, and they are not allowed to emit bills of credit. It was so obvious to the founders that if the states could use anything but silver and gold, and you can't emit bills of credit, the assumption was pretty strong that there's no written down authority that you can have a central bank that could print money out of thin air. It's just not there.
Absolutely. Well, finally, on another subject entirely, we haven't heard a lot about Julian Assange since news broke that he was sick in a hospital bed. What does it say about the state of journalism when he helps expose, alongside Chelsea Manning, the murder of men, women, and children, and instead of the murderers getting thrown in a cage, the messenger gets thrown in a cage? What do you think about that?
Well, it tells you how powerful and defensive and concerned the empire is, because their truth is becomes treasonous in an empire, and we have an empire, and it's based on lies about money and statistics and all the things that we do around the world. And we condemn people when they say, oh, well, they're interfering in election, which they might not even be doing that. At the same time, we interfere in elections all the time. There's hardly an election in the world that we're not involved in, and that's our CIA. Just think of the messing around. Started when we had a coup in 1953, so that's been our business. So it's the fact that we have an empire, we're maintaining it. It's a bipartisan thing to do. It depends on maintaining the dollar. Really, it has to be done, but that is not going to last. It'll end, and it won't end smoothly. It'll be very difficult. We will have a major catastrophe when that happens.
Absolutely. A lot of people will call all of this a doom and gloom, but I think we will find out somewhere down the line when all this comes to fruition that we're just spreading the message of freedom and free money and voluntarism, these ideas of freedom that are getting more and more popular all the time. And I think it's more optimistic than ever. Final question. Are you optimistic about the next 20 years and how people will accept the idea of freedom, free markets, free money, and all these messages you've delivered for so long?
Oh, to a degree, I think the freedom movement is making progress, and we're getting traction. There's more young people interested, and the other system is coming apart. But to say that that's going to be beneficial in the next year or two, no. I think once you live beyond your means, you have to, live beneath your means and pay the bills. And a country has to do the same thing. And we have a lot of distortion of wealth distribution. That all has to be sorted out. So I think the next 5-10 years can be pretty rocky. Let's just hope that you on your program and others like you can keep spreading this message, because that is what counts.
You've been talking about inflation for a long time, and that has a lot to do with that wealth redistribution and that those problems that we see all too often. So anyway, I really appreciate you joining us today, and hope to see you soon.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Like what you see here at WHAM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we're so heavily demonetized and censored and shadow banned. It's getting really bad, folks. If everyone just gave $1 single a month to, say, Patreon or our Subscribestar, where we do subscriber-only content, we could really get out of this rut that we are currently in as YouTube tries to stifle independent media and prop up the mainstream media. This is really important. This is one of the most important times in independent media history for us to say it's now or never. Let's keep moving forward and let's be that change that we wish to see in the world. Of course, there's also our Bitcoin address below as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And of course, we got events coming up. So make sure to check us out at anarchovegas.com. Anarchovegas.com. Use promo code WAM, that's WHAM, for a 10% discount on your tickets. It's on July 19th, 20th, and 21st in, of course, Las Vegas, Nevada. That's anarchovegas.com. Make sure to check us out there and find us on websites like BitTube and Minds, and just try to support independent media, if not myself, any of the other big independent medias out there, to help us continuously bring our message to you free of charge so that we can really change the guard as we move forward into a dramatically polarized, crazy future. Let's try to make it as sustainable as possible. It comes down to you guys. You are the change you wish to see. You guys will help us get through these tough times. So anyway, check out all those links. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.